Good afternoon, everyone. I am Katie Deschler. I'm the Voluntary Services Manager here at DAV National Headquarters. Thanks for joining me today for our local Veterans Assistance Program Best Practices webinar. A couple quick housekeeping items before we begin. You will be muted for the duration of this webinar. So if you have a question as I go along in your toolbar on your Zoom, sometimes that's at the top of the page, sometimes at the bottom, depending on where you have that in your settings. You'll see a little Q&A box, and it kind of looks like two chat boxes right next to each other. So any questions you have, please type them in there. I will go through all of them at the end, and I will answer everything. Those that are relevant to everyone that may be attending, I will go ahead and answer while we're on the webinar. And if there's anything that may be a little more specific to your department or your chapter, I will get with you after this webinar and answer those questions by email. I am going to turn my camera off now and we'll get started. Thanks, everyone. Our local Veterans Assistance Program was created to allow many volunteers who are involved in veteran support activities outside of our VA medical centers to record their hours of volunteerism and report them to DAV. This happened in about 2007. DAV realized that there were a lot of things that our members, our departments, our chapters, their local communities, they were getting out there and doing things for veterans and really doing even more for those that we serve. So we wanted to find a way to capture those hours. And Local Veterans Assistance Program, or LVAP as we call it, was our answer to that issue. So some of your departments may have what we call an LVAP coordinator. That is the person that you report, any chapters report all of their local Veterans Assistance Program hours to, and then those LVAP coordinators then report those hours to DAV National Headquarters back here to Voluntary Services. You should also be encouraging your members to record their monthly hours in a timely manner so you can get them to us in a timely manner. And you should be recruiting and enrolling new members into the LVAP program, including youth volunteers. One of the things that we have here is our DAV Youth Scholarship Award. We give 10 scholarships each year, totaling $110,000, and that top scholarship is $30,000. That application period is open right now. It will close for the 2023 award year on February 28th of 2023. So it closes at the end of this month. Anything we receive after February 28th, we will put to the 2024 award year. So if you get it in late, you're not going to miss out completely. But just remember that those volunteers do have to be age 21 or younger. So if they are going to turn 22 before February 28th, they need to make sure that they get those into us. Some important tips for reporting your LVAP hours. Reports are due to National Headquarters on the 5th of each month. So any January volunteer hours should be reported to us here at National Headquarters no later than February 5th. LVAP is an essential program for DAV. We have to show the strength of all of our programs for continued growth. And we have to be able to show what we're doing in local communities to help those veterans and their family members that we serve. Credit for volunteer hours is based on DAV National Headquarters receiving the information. So if you don't report your hours to us, we can't count them for you. Please make sure that you're getting those into us. We do report those hours to Congress, watchdog groups, members, and donors. So please make sure you're getting us those reports. I know I keep saying that over and over again, but please make sure you're sending in those reports. And please remember that really anything you do for veterans in your local community, for their families, we can count those hours. That will count for LVAP, and those LVAP hours do count towards our National Convention Awards. So if it's as simple as going and mowing a veteran's yard, or it's as big as having a homeless stand down in your local community, both of those count. Both of those hours count just the same. Both of those hours still help veterans. So please make sure that you're getting those to us. And then reporting these hours does help our bottom line, and it shows that we're fulfilling our promises to our members and those that we serve. Other helpful tips. So we did send out a new Excel form, and that was sent out in May of 2020. Been a couple years ago now. We have not updated the form since then. And we do understand that some of the information on the form is of a personal nature, and people may not want to share their personal information. What we require on that form is really the minimum we need to be able to credit an hour or hours to an individual volunteer. If the volunteer prefers to keep that information off the reporting form, we can enter it under your department or your chapter just as a bulk total, but then the volunteer is not going to get credit for those hours. And we can't send them our recognition items, which I'll explain a little bit later in our webinar. The new form is designed to upload seamlessly into DAV's customer relationship management system. And it does make data entry more efficient for our DAV voluntary services team. Every time somebody types something in, so when you type it into that spreadsheet, or you type it onto a form that isn't that spreadsheet, and then it gets to national headquarters, and we have to type it onto that spreadsheet, or we have to manually enter that in the system. Each one of those points is a place where an error can be made. We'd like to think that we don't make any mistakes, but none of us are perfect. So the less points of data entry that we have, the more accurate that information can be. And that's one of the reasons that we do ask you to use that Excel worksheet. Just a quick example of our reporting form. You may notice sometime last year we did add membership number to the form. So if the volunteer is a DAV or DAV auxiliary member, and they don't wish to give their personal information, they can give us that membership number, because that's a unique identifier, and we can figure out which record in the system it is supposed to go to. With millions of records in our system between volunteers and donors and employees and chapter and department leadership and members, there are a lot of John Smiths. So even if you say, well, I'm John Smith from Ohio, there are several hundred John Smiths in Ohio. So that membership number or date of birth and address will help us identify which record we need. This is something that gets talked about quite often, so I'm going to spend a little bit of more time on this today than I normally do. So these are our different categories and our different job descriptions for LVAP. We get a lot of questions on this, and I just want to make sure that everybody kind of understands what's going on with each of these categories. So we'll start off with our chapter service officer category. Those are any hours worked by an official DAV chapter service officer. Hours reported as a CSO without a certification from the DAV National Service and Legislative Headquarters will not be credited. So when you all go through your training at your department conventions and you become a department service officer or a chapter service officer, National Service and Legislative Headquarters reports that back to us. They report that certification. We then put that certification into CRM. So if you don't have that certification in your CRM record, it will not count those hours. And you honestly shouldn't be performing any chapter service or department service officer work without being certified by Service and Legislative Headquarters. DAV outreach. These are any hours dedicated to the furtherance of DAV's mission and or our programs. So these are any seminars that you may attend, workshops that you may get, any training that you do. That VAVS certification at your department conventions counts. Volunteer driver certification, disaster relief, thrift store activities. Those all count. DAV department and chapter meetings that include a formalized seminar, workshop, or training or DAV related programs may be reported as DAV outreach. Meetings that do not include these sessions should not be reported. So if you, for example, attend our DAV National Convention and you attend our voluntary services seminar or our employment seminar or our legislative seminar, you can count the hours that you attended those seminars under LVAP. What you cannot do is count fun night under LVAP or dinners under LVAP, or any kind of our business sessions also do not count under LVAP. So just kind of keep that in mind. And if you have any questions about, hey, does this count or does this not count, you can always contact us here. Any of our VAVS specialists are willing to help anytime. So please just shoot an email to vavs@dav.org or call our number, which is on one of our other slides. And we're happy to help you anytime. Fundraising, just what it sounds like. Any hours performed for DAV fundraising events. So hours for event planning of the event, day of event activities. This is our forget-me-nots, any sweepstakes you may do, Golden Corral events. If your department hosts a local 5K event, the hours should be submitted under fundraising. They should only be submitted under DAV 5K if you're attending the DAV National Series 5K in Cincinnati. So just remember that if it's a local 5K, please report that under fundraising. Grassroots legislative. So these are hours completed by a benefits protection team leader for the furtherance of DAV's legislative efforts. Those benefits protection team leaders can turn those hours into us for anyone outside of themselves here at DAV National Headquarters. There is a separate form for that. So if you are a benefits team leader, please email us, or you can email legislation and we'll get that form to you. Homeless stand down. So these are any hours completed for planning and day of activities for a local homeless veteran stand down. We have our own stand down here at DAV National Headquarters in October each year. That's where those hours go for us. We like to be able to kind of separate those out a little bit so we can show what we're doing as far as our homeless veterans initiatives go. So if you are doing a stand down, please put that in that specific category. And then LVAP. This is our catch-all, guys. So any hours completed for department or chapter initiatives that don't fit into a specific LVAP category, put those here. This is basically miscellaneous without being labeled miscellaneous. So if you're not sure where it goes and you want to make sure somebody gets the hours, please just put them under LVAP and that'll do. If you find out later that, hey, it should have gone somewhere else, sometimes we're able to go back and change that if it's not too far in the past. And if not, they're still getting credit for you're still getting credit for the hours, and the volunteer is still getting credit as well. So the specific category can just be changed going forward. So our special events category, any hours dedicated to DAV or DAV auxiliary events such as state fairs, National Guard mobilizations or demobilizations, Memorial Day events, Veterans Day events, etc. Time spent in department and chapter meetings planning these special events may be reported under special events. Again, meetings times that are not dedicated to event planning should not be reported. And then veteran assistance. So this is any hours dedicated to direct assistance of veteran spouses and families. And what we mean by this is like yard work, if you do home repairs, grocery shopping, caregiver respite rides to medical appointments, using a private vehicle, not using the DAV Transportation Network, because DAV Transportation Network should be reported through the HSC. One other quick note here, guys, especially under veteran assistance. We have noticed an uptick in the number of departments who are reporting more hours than possible for an individual in a single month. So if you are reporting hours for an individual volunteer and those hours total more than the number of hours that actually existed in that month, they will be adjusted accordingly before we enter them here at DAV National Headquarters. Just want to give a heads up on that. Also, make sure you're not double counting hours. So if you do 2 hours of CSO work during a day and 2 hours of veteran assistance, and you're a caregiver and you've spent 8 hours as a caregiver, if you were doing the CSO work and the other veteran assistance during that same 8 hours that you were a caregiver, it's just 8 hours. It's not 12. I know people multitask and things like that happen, but please just try to be cognizant of that, and try to do the best that you can. Again, if you have any questions, you can always ask us here. So one thing, again, in 2020, we made several changes to the LVAP program. And one of the things that we did is we switched from a calendar year to the DAV membership fiscal year for LVAP reporting. So timely reporting of LVAP hours is essential to the success of this program. And the one thing to remember is that now our LVAP year runs July 1st through June 30th. So the end of our LVAP year is June 30th each year. With a tight turnaround for awards at National Convention, any hours not received by July 15th will not be factored into the LVAP division awards at convention. Please, please remember that. Because if you wait, you send in a couple months and then you wait and you don't send some for 3 or 4 months, and then on July 14th, you send us an entire year of LVAP, we may or may not have time to get that entry in and make it count for National Convention Awards. So just something to think about. If you report monthly and you're reporting during the year, then we can make sure that we can ensure that we get those hours in and that they count towards those convention awards. Our 2022 LVAP statistics: 7,780 volunteers volunteered more than 1.7 million hours. After a couple of rough years due to COVID, we're really proud of this number. And we are so grateful for everything that you guys have done in your local communities to bring that number up. As I mentioned earlier, if you don't report our hours, your volunteers won't receive their milestones. So this is an example of what our incentive milestones are. You can see we have award levels for both miles and hours. If someone is an LVAP volunteer and a DAV Transportation Network driver, they will receive awards for both. So we count miles for Transportation Network and we count hours for both LVAP and VAVS. Just something to think about. At each milestone, the volunteer will receive a generous gift from DAV as a token of DAV's appreciation in their time spent assisting veterans. Just a quick example of some of the things that we give out for those milestones. We do look at them each year and kind of try to change things out a little bit. So if there's any questions about that, you guys can always, again, ask us here at National Headquarters. So we do have promotion materials and resources for you guys. We have our LVAP user manual, which was updated in 2022. I will send that out at the conclusion of this webinar. So everyone who is attending or registered for the webinar will receive that. You can also request our volunteer poster. It explains a little bit about all of our DAV voluntary services programs. If you have a chapter or meeting place where you're allowed to hang things up, great thing to just kind of put up, and that way you can, that's a real easy recruitment tool for volunteers. If they see them, or if there are stores in your area, or here in Ohio and Kentucky, we call them convenience stores. So if you have convenience stores, you can always hang them up there as well. We also have our LVAP brochure and our orientation handbook for Volunteer for Veterans. So if you guys need any of those, again, you can go through the membership portion of the website and request those using the membership order form. Our forms are on there as well. Or you can email vavs@dav.org and request those forms directly from us. Couple resources for everybody. DAV volunteer website. So volunteerforveterans.org just takes you to the DAV website where it explains all about our volunteer programs. Our scholarship information is there. Our DAV scholarships website, which is davscholarships.org. Again, if you have a youth volunteer who is age 21 or younger, and you think they'd be a good candidate for that, please get your applications into us by February 28th. You can download our LVAP monthly reporting form, the LVAP SOP, or user manual. And then again, you can also find the VS supply form on the DAV portal. If you're in need of any items, brochures, you can order them and we will have them shipped. Again, in case anybody is furiously trying to write down those links, I will send this out at the conclusion of the webinar, so everyone will have the slides from the webinar as well. And here is our contact information. Like I said, everything, if you're contacting the Voluntary Services Department, please contact VAVS@DAV.org. When you send something like a report, especially, or a question to somebody's personal email address or individual work email address, if they're on vacation, if they're out, they may not see it right away. VAVS@DAV.org is monitored by everyone in our department. So you'll just make sure that we either get your reports more quickly or you get an answer to your question a little more quickly. If you need to mail stuff into us, Voluntary Services, 860 Dulwich Drive, Erlanger, Kentucky, 41018. And then there is our extension here, DAV National Headquarters main line with our extension of 1313, or our toll-free line with extension 1313. Like I said, we're happy to help everybody with questions. If you have any questions, just call in, shoot us an email. We'll get back to you just as quickly as we possibly can. Okay, looks like we do have a few questions. And if anybody has any questions left for me, please start typing them in there. I'm going to go through these and see what our questions are and see what we can answer. And then we'll conclude the webinar. And if you have any other questions, again, you can email us at that VAVS@DAV.org. Okay, I do have a question here about some folks apparently have been volunteering for a while and they've gotten the same award twice. It says, how did the volunteer hours work? Do they start at 0 every year, or do volunteer hours keep accumulating over the years? They do keep accumulating over the years. So if they're receiving the same award like in a row, if they get a 50-hour pin and then another 50-hour pin, please let us know here who that was, and we can try to make sure that we get that corrected. We do have some duplicates in our system, so sometimes that's what's happened. If somehow a person got entered twice and we didn't realize it and we put volunteer hours on both people, that is a way that can happen. If it's happening to more than one person, I'd be curious to find out what's going on there. So you can email me or email VAVS@DAV.org, and we'll make sure that we get that taken care of. And I do see your name there, the person who asked this question. So I will reach out to you and we'll try to get that corrected as well. And then this one says, what is the website for the application for the scholarship? I did mention that, but I will mention it again just because it's of the utmost importance. And that is DAV. I'm sorry. Let me start over. I got a little tongue-tied. Sorry, guys. That is davscholarships.org. So, and then I have a person here that says, can we catch up? I know my chapter has not submitted any after the July 2022 period, but I have all the sheets. I can catch up, but what is the best way to do that and get all the information to you? So yes, you can catch up to a certain point. We try not to go back more than a year. So if you have hours from like 2018, 2017, you can send them to us. We're going to make more recent volunteer hours our highest priority there. So the best way to do that is just to send those reports to VAVS@DAV.org and we'll get them in. If for some reason the sheets aren't in an electronic format, you can also mail them into us at the Dulwich Drive address. So, and then I have a question. If members are logging their hours, does the chapter coordinator still report? How do we know who is listed as a chapter coordinator, and how do we make a change of chapter coordinator? So I will say, we generally don't allow individual members to report their own hours. We either receive those hours from the chapter or from the department. Now, we have some departments who prefer that their chapters just send those into us themselves. And we have some departments who prefer that their chapters report to the department, and then the department reports to DAV National Headquarters. We ask that you follow what your department leadership requests on that. So I would reach out to your state department and see how they want that, how they prefer to have that sent into us. And then as far as how do you know who is listed or how do you make a change of chapter coordinator, I would reach out to your chapter leadership on that. Your commander, chapter commander and adjutant would be the ones who would make those decisions. So our members report their monthly hours at the next month's chapters meeting. These meetings are often held on dates later than the 5th of the following months. The requirement to report hours by the 5th would require someone to contact members for hours. Why not accept hours anytime during the next month? That's how I thought it was now. We prefer to have those into us by the 5th. If you get them to us later, it's not like we say, hey, no, that's we got this on the 6th, we're throwing those out. You can still report them to us if that's how your meetings work. That's how your meetings work. Just try to get them into us as soon as you possibly can. How can I be sure my CSO certification has been sent to National Service and Legislative Headquarters? You can actually contact us here, vavs@dav.org, and we will take a look and see what's listed in CRM and see if you're listed as certified. If not, you can reach out to National Service and Legislative Headquarters and ask them if they've received the information from the department. So, and I have a question here that says, why does it stop at 10K? And I'm going to flip back because I assume that that is referring to. Yes. So right now we stop at 10,000 hours. If you have a person in your department or chapter that has more than 10,000 volunteer hours, please point that out to us. And we can try to do a little something more for them, especially someone that's had that. Or same thing for the 200,000 miles. If you have somebody who has more than that, please let us know and we'll work with you to make sure that they get recognized for that. So this says, I have a wife of a now deceased DAV member. First off, no matter how long ago that was, I'm sorry for her loss and for your loss as a department. Does she use his membership number? No, please do not use anyone else's membership number, because if she uses his membership number, then those hours will be reported on an inactive record. She feels that she needs to pay it forward through volunteering her time for DAV purposes. And that is wonderful. And we commend her and appreciate her for that. What I would do for that is you just don't put, if they're not a member, don't put membership number on the form. Then I would just ask her to give us her name, her full address, and her date of birth. That way we can get her entered into the system if she's not already there with all of her information. And then we can use that information to match her up each month when she does volunteer or every time she volunteers. But yes, please don't put anybody else's information for anybody else's member number. Also, if she is a DAV auxiliary member, you can use her DAV auxiliary membership number. So I have a question here about a directive from a chapter that you recently received. Since that's a little more specific, I will get back to you. I will email you after this webinar. And then I have a question. Do non-drivers get recognition? Yes, they do. So if they are doing VAVS hours through a local VA facility, or they're doing local Veterans Assistance Program hours, that's what that hours milestone is for. It's specifically for those drivers. With the transportation network drivers, we base those milestones on the number of miles driven rather than the number of hours. And then hours are specifically for VAVS and LVAP. So if you think there may be an issue and we may have missed someone, please let us know. We attended our county deceased veterans ceremony. How is that time annotated? I would annotate that under special events, just like you would a Memorial Day event or a Veterans Day event. I would notate any of those kind of ceremonies as a special event. And then again, I have what about individual hours that are reported after the 5th day of the following month? Again, we're not throwing out hours. We won't do that. But we just try to get them into us as quickly as you possibly can after for the month before. Where would you log speaking about the DAV to people at church or anywhere and tell them about the benefits of filing a claim? I would log that under DAV outreach. That's outreach. You're telling people about our programs. You're telling them about our services. You're telling them about our organization. So I would log that under DAV outreach. So I was told that we have to separate chapter hours from unit hours into 2 different reports. Is this true? No, it is not. You can send those into us as one report if you prefer. Especially where our departments are concerned, if you're reporting hours for more than one chapter, you can report, as long as the location codes are correct, you can report all of those on one spreadsheet. And again, if you have any questions about that, I know Excel can get a little tricky sometimes. So if you have any questions about that, call us here. We're happy to walk you through it. The youth scholarship requires a membership number. Our youth volunteers do not have membership numbers. So I'm going to reach out to you after this. Our youth scholarship does actually not require a membership number. Our volunteer of the year award does, because the volunteers of the year need to be a DAV or DAV auxiliary member. But our scholarship recipients do not have to be a DAV or auxiliary member. They just have to be a youth volunteer who's crediting their hours to DAV or the DAV auxiliary. I'm actually going to see if I can. One second, guys, and I'm going to see if I can bring up our actual website. Okay, so this is our DAV scholarships website. So you'll see here, it kind of shows you each year, it shows our awards. We have our award winner from 2022 and then 2021 and 2020. So if you go to this and click apply now, you'll get to that. You'll get to this. Now, if you don't have a login, then you will need to go to new user registration and request a login. If you are a member and you have a login to the MyDAV the membership portal, it's the same login. So if not, request a new one. That comes to us here. We will approve those within the next business day, and then it'll send you an email to set up your actual account. So once you get here, you can start a new application, and it will just ask you all of the questions our paper application do. If you have any issues with this application, please let us know. Or if you don't have access to a computer where you can fill out the application, we do have paper copies, so you can just request a paper copy from us here. I would send that to volunteerawards@dav.org, because that's where all of our scholarship goes. But yeah, as you can kind of see here, and I'm sorry if I'm scrolling too quickly, it does not require a membership number for the youth scholarship. It just requires a membership number for the DAV and DAV auxiliary volunteers of the year. So this is another actually very good question. Does a paid employee hour count? No. If you are a paid employee of DAV, and you're doing your job that you're being paid for, then no, that is not a volunteer hour. Um, I'm actually a good example of this. I do several things for the DAV 5K. I do several things, but I am also the manager of the voluntary services department. So that's not volunteer for me. That's my job. If you are being paid as a hospital service coordinator, those hours would not count. If you're being paid as a department service officer, those hours would not count. But if you're, for example, we have a lot of corporations who over the years say, hey, we give our employees a day off paid to go do things in their local community. So if you have like a Humana or a Home Depot or something like that, and they come to you and they say, hey, if they're being paid by their company and not by us, yes, then those are volunteer hours for us. But if you're being paid to do your job within DAV, no, those would not count. I hope that makes sense. If not, please reach out to me and I'll try to explain that a little bit better. So somebody asked if we can do a webinar on DAV scholarships. Yes, we do actually have a webinar each year on DAV scholarships. I do not have that webinar list right in front of me, but I will reach out to you and make sure that I give you what date that webinar will be. I have a very kind reminder here that to just let everybody know also, if you have a volunteer, a youth volunteer who has already applied for the scholarship in the past or already won the scholarship in the past, they can still reapply. They can apply every year until they reach age 22. So just something to think out. Don't think, hey, they already applied, or hey, they already won and they can't apply again. Yes, they absolutely can. We have winners who have won more than once. We have people who have applied more than once. So please make sure that you note that with your youth volunteers, they can continue to reapply. Somebody asked, how can we find out what months we didn't get our hours reported for? Contact VAVS@DAV.org. We will let you know what months that we're missing from your chapter or department. Is there a scholarship brochure? Yes, there is. I have your name here and I will have your email when I get the report from the end of the webinar. So I will send that out to you. Somebody asked also to send the user manuals. Asked if I will send the user manuals or can they go on DAV.org? Either or. It is on DAV.org as well under our resources section, but I will send it out to everybody after this webinar is complete. Quick reminder to everybody that you don't have to be a DAV or a DAV auxiliary member to volunteer for DAV. You just have to want to help veterans in your local community and help support them and their families and thank them for everything that they have done for us. So, I mean, that's the most important thing with all of this is if you have the passion for veterans, you can volunteer. We have a lot of volunteers who are members, who are DAV and DAV auxiliary members, and we appreciate them. We also have a lot of volunteers who are not members, and we appreciate them just as much. So just one thing to remember, we have had a couple people say, well, I'm not a member, so I can't volunteer. Of course you can. You wouldn't stop somebody from giving you help because they weren't a DAV member, and we won't stop people from giving us help because they're not a DAV member either. And then somebody asked also, is there an available list of future webinars we can see in order to plan to attend? We generally send those out about 2 weeks before the webinar. But what I will do is, yes, I will absolutely create a list of the webinars that we have scheduled for the year, and send that out to people. We'll send that out to everybody on this webinar, and then we'll send that out to chapter and department leadership, and VABS representatives as well. So if there are any people who do both VABS representative and LVAP coordinator, I'll make sure that we send all of those out. But yes, that's a very good suggestion. Thank you very much for that. I'll make sure it will likely be sometime next week, just so we have time to make sure that that's correct and make sure everything's on there, and then we'll get it out to you guys. It doesn't look like I have any other questions. If I haven't answered a question that you asked, I will get with you on a side note and sidebar and make sure those questions get answered. They were just things that may not pertain to everyone. So thank you all so much again for attending the webinar today. Thank you guys for everything that you do for DAV, for everything that you do for voluntary services. We appreciate you so much. Again, if you have any questions, please email us at vabs@dav.org or give us a call. And you should see the slides from this webinar within the next hour. So if you don't receive them, please let me know. We'll make sure we get them out to you. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.